Okay, this is Reflection Conference number 2 with Roxanne being the coach and Lisa being the coachee. So Lisa, I know that you've done your lesson. Can you reflect back on it and tell me how you feel it went?
Well, I feel that my lesson could have used some improvement on my end.
Okay.
I feel that it was my first time using the Frayer model, and I experienced, I guess, as you might say, a little stage fright. And by that I mean that all the research and planning that I did not provide me with enough background knowledge and support to allow me to make modifications during the lesson based on my tutee's responses and his needs.
Okay, so you're telling me that you're a little bit concerned about how the lesson went, because even though you did a lot of research and background knowledge on the Frayer model, you still don't feel that that gave you enough background knowledge to modify your lesson while it was going on to assist your student in making word meanings.
Right.
Okay. What did you observe your tutee doing or saying that led you to think this way?
Well, I felt that his responses directed my instruction, and my goal, I guess, was a little different than what actually happened. So, for example, I used the word poor for modeling, and it was P-O-R-E. And I chose this word because it was a word that I introduced to him a week ago. That was a vocabulary word from our story we're doing. And I had the expectation that he would have remembered the new meaning of it. Because we did talk about the similar sounds of the word poor, to not have enough money, as compared to P-O-R-E, to, stare along at something. But I quickly observed that he did not retain the meaning based upon his response. So his response during my modeling quickly changed my instruction early on in the lesson. And I felt that at that time I lost a little bit of confidence in my lesson.
Well, do you think that maybe the word poor, P-O-R-E, is one of those words that, maybe one of those tier 3 words, something that maybe a student at this age doesn't usually read or hear that word in everyday language, and maybe that threw him off, and he was basically relying on a more familiar meaning of the word poor, meaning a liquid, something that
well, yeah, because
based upon one of his responses.
Yes, and I feel as though, and the minute that he gave me that response, I knew, oh, okay, he doesn't remember the meaning of this word. So therefore, I was trying to think on my feet and think, should I change the word I'm using, or should I go with this and see where it goes? Because it could have a good outcome. I could, but I, again, as I said, not having enough background knowledge with using this model, I wasn't 100% sure, so I chose to go with it, and I did, and I learned from it.
So perhaps in the future, maybe for your modeling, you could use a more familiar word, and an easy word, so he'll get the gist of the entire model. Alright, so think back and discuss your own behavior during the lesson.
Well, during the lesson, I was trying to guide him to recall the correct meaning of the word that I used based on the lessons last week. I was careful not to give him the actual answer. However, we went to the computer. It was kind of like a last resort because I didn't want to give him the answer. So I felt that was another avenue he could go. We went to the computer and we looked it up in an online dictionary. And then I used the information that he did give me, though, as a non-example. Because I didn't want to just say, no, you were wrong. I wanted him to understand that it could fit in somewhere in the model. So I did use what he said in some way.
You noticed that he was struggling, but you also wanted to validate what he was saying. It did fit into one of those non-examples. And so you did allow him to go into the, I guess, dictionary.com and get that definition, so to keep moving the acquisition of the meaning of the word forward. Is what you observed match up with what you planned?
No, it is not. I did not plan for him to not know the word. As I said, I felt, I had different expectations, and I think that's something as teachers we all sit and plan lessons, and student responses sometimes just drive our instruction, and we have to be prepared on those things.
Well, I think that happens. I think that's an everyday, not an everyday occurrence, but a reasonable occurrence. Not everything that we plan and we expect our students to remember and to perform, they don't do that. But perhaps could you think of something that you could have done differently to maybe help him?
Yeah, well, my reflection at that moment, as well as just conversations from other students within the clinic, I thought about, well, I could have used a more familiar word, a word that he would have just easily been able to recall, which will allow him to focus on the model, not the word itself. Because I had to remember, I was teaching the model and how to gain meaning of words, where I think is the word I chose, it allowed him to step away from the model.
Okay.
So I had to rethink my plans in that regard.
So how did what you planned match up with what you did?
Well, it really, as I said early on in the lesson, it had to take a turn, and I felt that there were just some bumps in the instruction.
Oh, so what do you mean by bumps?
Well, I felt that I should have planned to explicitly model a word, a simple word with the Freyer model, and to have him observe and not have him help or contribute. So he could have seen how the Freyer model was used with a word, and then allow him to complete one with me. Whereas I only did one model, and when I modeled it, we kind of did it together.
Okay.
And then I gave him the 3 words on his graphic organizers, and then I again gave him, I would say guided practice, and then I gave him 2 more for him to do on his own.
Okay, so you were certainly using the gradual release model, but you feel that you should have specifically modeled with him not engaged, not engaged, but not participating.
Just observing.
Observing, right. And then use another word to have guided practice, and then let him work independently.
Right. I feel like there wasn't any point where I kind of just let him go. And that's just because I don't feel like he was confident in it enough, and because he didn't fully understand some component of it.
So do you feel your 2T achieved the goals that you planned?
Yes and no. Yes, because he completed the 3 words that I had set out for him to complete. However, I expected him to do it more independently, so therefore that's where I would say no. So it's kind of like a twofold answer.
Right. So I definitely saw his 3, but you also feel that he really hasn't taken ownership of this particular word meaning strategy.
No, it has not.
Did you encounter any teachable moments that might help you switch up your lesson?
Well, there wasn't like an aha moment with him where I said, oh my gosh, this is like the moment where I can say like something's happening. But in my own reflection, I did observe that the categories I felt did not adequately lead him to making word meaning. So I guess as soon as I observed that early on, I said that was a teachable moment for me to say I need to make adjustments. And I would plan accordingly for future lessons.
Okay, so you still want to use the Freyer model, but you might want to, what you're telling me, you should want to switch up the categories, switch up the descriptions in the categories to maybe customize it to your student's strengths.
Right.
So that he can determine word meaning.
Right, I feel it's something. Comprehension is an area he's weak in, so I feel like word meaning is important for him, and this is something that he can grow into. But I feel like he has to get stronger with just attacking the words. So therefore, what I mean by that is the sections were too vague. So because if he doesn't know a meaning of a word, he's not going to be able to give a characteristic of it and so forth.
Or an example or a non-example.
No.
If he doesn't know what.
Right.
And so what could you do? What could you attach to those categories?
Well, since we've worked on context clues in previous lessons, I felt that I wanted to use that in some way. So I would break it into, I guess you would say 5 components, because I actually, 5. And I would make one section be a sentence from the text, where he would copy a sentence from the text where the word was included in. And then he would identify words that helped him make meaning of the word, like pull out the context clues. Then he would have to create his own definition. So what kind of meaning did he make? And see what he comes up with. And I would explain to him clearly it's okay if his meaning is off. Like if it's wrong, it's not a big deal. Because then we would go to the computer and look up the word. And I think that would be a good way for both himself and myself as the teacher to see, is he close, or how close is he, or is he thinking totally off? And then from that he can then form a sentence, and hopefully his sentence would be a correct usage of the word, because now he's gathered information in 3 ways.
Well, I think that sounds like a really good idea. What evidence did you observe from your tutee that convinced you that he did or did not perform as you had hoped?
Well, as I've expressed throughout my lesson, I feel like he didn't perform as I had hoped, and so therefore I experienced difficulty deriving meanings from the model.
Okay.
So.
I have just a follow-up question. So, you're not going to abandon this model for him. You're just going to modify it.
I did.
Okay.
I am, and I feel like, because I feel he benefits from graphic organizers. He does. He's not a paper pencil child where he has to sit down and write a lot of things. So I think he likes the charts. He likes to see his thinking on paper, and he was excited about it. But I think the more he got into it, he shied away from it because he did not understand it.
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely want to keep going with it, but I just like I want to just adjust it and see how it works. And I think if all goes as I've planned, and I think it may, I think it will work out well.
Well, hopefully the Frayer model will be another tool for his toolkit to complement his use of context clues, phonetic analysis, structural analysis. So help him as the texts get harder to understand more words.
And I think in time he can apply that Frayer model as he, as I said, as he gets stronger with his word meaning, or maybe in other subject areas. Maybe it's a better thing to use in math because we can find other areas. It's easier to give an example of something in that.
Right, and or non-examples.
Right, or non-example.
Maybe get back to the original Frayer model eventually. Well, thank you. I hope everything goes well, and thank you for sharing. Thank you.